If you've got multiple MIDI controllers, you might not know that using them all at the same time with Ableton Live isn't that hard. And I'm using some simple settings and techniques to utilize both of these controllers in this performance. Keep watching to see if you can understand all the ways the controllers are being used. Then I'll explain the easiest way to set up multiple MIDI controllers in Ableton Live. Thank you to Sonido for sponsoring today's video. All right, did you catch all the ways we're using these controllers? First, we're playing keys on the keys of the Sonido W25. Then we played drums on the C16. And then we triggered some effects on the pads of the W25. And then we played some leads on the C16, all the while being able to trigger stutter effects with some pads on the C16 as well. All that is done with all of these tracks armed and no fancy Ableton Live integration. So how are we accomplishing this? A very important settings menu in Ableton Live to accomplish this is accessed down here in the bottom right corner, this little mixer icon. We want to look for the in-out menu, and that will make this section display right here in session view. In this menu here, we can choose for each track what controller it receives MIDI from and what MIDI channel it receives MIDI from. Two very important settings. In the case of this keyboard instrument, I've got the tempo key W25 here. My keys are specifically sending MIDI on channel 1, which I can see with the little lights that are flashing right next to channel 1. So that confirms that for me. By default, these settings will be set to all ins. And what happens there is, yeah, I'll be able to play keys on this track, but then when I come over to this controller, it's actually gonna trigger both of these now. Let's mute the other one. But you can see we're triggering our keys track now, and that is not what we want at all. So we select the specific controller that we want. By the way, both of these controllers are connected via Bluetooth. And then we select the particular channel. Now this is important because I have two ways of inputting notes on the tempo key W25. We've got the keys and we've got the pads. Well, take a look what happens when I press the pads. Well, first of all, I'm still sending notes to the keys, but also all our effects are happening. But if you take a closer look, you can see MIDI is coming through on channel 2. So to recap, keys are coming in on channel 1, so we'll set that. Over here on this effects channel, I gotta make sure that we have the controller selected, but also that we select channel 2. So we can trigger those effects. You'll also notice that the effects track is on input monitoring. The only reason I did this is because I don't ever want to record the loop of these ideas and these effects. I just want them to happen incidentally as I play. So I just have them on input monitoring and it never records what I actually play. We just always hear what I'm playing. I hope that made sense. Now, let's go over to the C16 here for a moment. For my lead track, I'm here on bank C, and the cyan pads are sending notes on channel 3. Let's double check everything we just learned. If I want to play leads on the C16, I got to make sure I select the C16 and select the proper channel that notes are being sent from. And I can see we are lighting up next to channel 3. We can change that, but hold that thought. Now I'm going to go to bank A, which is where my drums are. Once again, on the drum track, I have C16 selected, and the MIDI is coming through on channel 1. This is something that can be done on mostly any MIDI controllers, and many MIDI controllers have some kind of software editor so that you can choose exactly what MIDI channel and even what type of MIDI messages send out from the individual parts of the controller. In the past, I've talked about a lot of reasons that I enjoy using the MIDI controllers, perfect for a mobile setup, love Bluetooth and iPad music making, but another reason is the flexibility they have with the ability to change a lot of these MIDI messages right from the controller itself. So if I go back to bank 16, these are sending notes, but these buttons do not send notes. They send specific kinds of MIDI messages called CC messages. If you look on screen here, you can see that they are going to trigger that beat repeat. Really useful to have that from a single pad layout, and the way I did it was by simply holding down the encoder here and tapping the pad that I want to edit. Now we get a full MIDI menu of things that we can edit. What kind of MIDI message it sends, what channel it sends MIDI on, what note or what CC number is assigned to that given pad. All really useful stuff if you have multiple MIDI controllers and you want to make sure the wires don't get crossed. And these settings are independent per pad. And I'm only utilizing 2 banks, bank A for drums, bank C for the leads and effects. We've got 2 other banks here, which could be fully assigned to other things. The Tempo Key W25 has the same concept. Hold the encoder, press a pad, and you get access to being able to change the number, the note, the color, and the MIDI channel of the pad. Extremely useful and extremely flexible, but not just for live performance. Think about this. Let's say you have multiple controllers. One you like to play keys and chords on, the other you like to play drums on, like I have right here. And this is just your everyday setup in your home studio. Well, if I delete all the extra performance-based stuff, let's get rid of the effects, the loop, let's get rid of all the loops that we just made, and let's say this is how I'd like to open Ableton Live every day. Let's even delete all the effects and instruments off of these tracks. Now what I have are just 3 blank tracks, one that's dedicated for keys but still assigned to this MIDI controller. The next track, which was our lead track, still receives MIDI from the same place. And finally, the drums track. The same MIDI assignments apply to all. By the way, this is not with mapping, this is just assigning the proper controller and MIDI channels to a particular device. Well, now, if I go to File, Save Live Set as Template, I'll just give it a name like Demo Setup. And let's say you're working on a different track another day, you've got another project open, but hey, you want to get working with this setup again, start fresh. Just open up that demo setup template, and here we go. Our template is loaded. Let's say you always want to start with some piano, grab the analog piano, you drop it on your keys track, and it works. And then you just want to grab some drums, drag it on your drums track. And finally, your lead, drag it on your leads track. All those MIDI assignments stayed, and it's just a faster way to get up and running if you've got your controllers, you've got your setup, and all you want to do is open Ableton Live and play. You just save a template like this, and you don't have to connect and map your controllers every time. Useful for just production workflow and performance like I demoed in the beginning. If you have any questions about this setup, let me know down in the comments. Thank you again to Sonito for sponsoring today's video. If y'all are looking for either your first MIDI controller or another MIDI controller to add to your collection, these are great options. They're budget friendly, easy to map, they're Bluetooth, which I love. Shout out to the channel members for your ongoing support. Thank you all so much for watching. This has been TAETRO. Have a good one.